All right, Georgia and Auburn are going to square off at Jordan-Hare. Auburn's going to have to play better on offense to beat these dogs.
Oh, they're going to have to play really well on offense to beat the dogs because I don't think Georgia's going to have a super hard time scoring on Auburn's defense. I think that you're probably a little higher on Auburn's defense than I am, but they're going to have to put up points, and that's a tall task. Whether you're at home, whether you're
against
at Stanford,
against
Georgia. South Carolina put up 14 against them, right? We're not going to see a team put up double digits against Georgia often.
Okay.
It hasn't been that way the last couple of years. It just doesn't happen anymore, and I don't.
You better be pretty good on offense.
You've gotta have some serious talent, which they're lacking right now.
Auburn.
Yeah.
Yeah, look, I know too much of my opinion about Auburn is based off of what I watched when they played Cal. But
our opinions are based off what we watch.
Yeah, I can't help it the way they played. It was not good on offense. Now, I do think their defense is okay. What I'm curious about, too, though, with Georgia is, what's it going to be like? Can they go out and function? Can Georgia are they going to be more precise? What's missing right now with Georgia is, and the little things are adding up against them a little bit, don't get a penalty in the red zone. If you don't get a penalty in the red zone, you probably won't kick a field goal, okay? Or it will be a 23-yard field goal or something like that. So there's execution that's going on at Georgia right now that you'd like to see better, okay, heading this Auburn game, because it's going to be Carson's first road game.
No, yeah, it is. It's for an offense that has struggled at times, right? They've had spurts where they've looked really good, and they've had spurts where they just can't score.
They've not scored consistently.
That's the best way to put it. They've driven down the field consistently.
Yep.
They haven't scored consistently, whether it be because they haven't found the end zone or haven't found the goalpost, right? But either way, points are points. And this offense is still gelling. You can tell. Ra Thomas is still finding his place in this offense. Dominic Lovett's still finding his place in this offense. They've had to deal with a running back room that's just a revolving door of injuries, and that hasn't changed. Roderick Robinson dealing with a high ankle sprain. Is Dejan as good as Dejan Edwards looked? Is he 100%? Kendall Milton's definitely not 100%. In fact, Kendall Milton's regressed with his hamstring over the course of the first.
Which I think is something they were worried about. I mean, you don't want to have to be concerned about the health of, and the health is the number one problem at Georgia right now. Mm-hmm. That's their biggest concern. It's a challenging moment at Georgia right now for Ron Corson, who, if you don't know who that is, he's been around the block forever. He's their medical person. He keeps the tabs of what's going on, and it's been tough out there at Georgia. But all that aside, this is why you recruit. This is why you go get players and develop them. And I think for this team, Auburn's going to be a test. Not because Auburn's as good as they once were, because they're not. We've talked about this in the recent past. Auburn's beaten Georgia 3 times since 2006. So a lot of the guys on the team have seen, and they may not have even seen it, Ryan, they've seen Auburn beat Georgia 3 times in their lifetime. That's not a lot, because part of that was when they were toddlers. They have a significant advantage against Auburn, but going on the road is tough. It just is.
No, and look, Auburn's one of the best environments in college football.
It really is. It's a hard place to play.
It's whether you like their chants or not, whether you like their traditions or not, and that's the case at all these places. But it's a legit SEC environment that has a lot of people. It's I think a few thousand fewer than what Georgia has.
It's 87,000.
Yeah, so but that's still a 86. Huge environment, and they care about this Georgia rivalry game, and they're going to get up for it, right? I don't think we have a time, or no, it's a 3:30
We do. It's a
3:30
CBS game. Hey, if you're going to watch this in your backyard and you're redoing your backyard, this Eco-Poly, I call it gear. It's not gear. It's furniture. It's made in-house, manufactured in Georgia, here in Dodge County, here in Eastman. You can get 15% off any item on their website by clicking the link down below. We had someone who just emailed me this morning from Buford, from your part of the woods.
My old woods.
They ordered 2 rocking chairs, the type that they've got more stuff coming, but these Adirondack chairs. In this video soon, we're going to show you some of the stuff.
That red chair that Eugene's, that's an Adirondack.
Yeah, that's a rocking chair. But my point is, there's some Adirondacks right behind us with a fire pit. You got a fire pit? Man, why don't you have this? Complete your backyard the right way. If you've got a pool, they have loungers. They've got stuff coming out. Make sure you're checking out Eco-Poly. It's in the heart of Georgia, here in Eastman. Heart of Georgia, which used to be the battleground for Auburn and Georgia for recruits. We're not seeing that like we used to. We're just not.
No, Kirby and company they've been dominating that. And look, they've also gone national, right? They don't win every single player in Georgia, and we've seen that a lot recently because they haven't had to. Because they go and they pluck Darnell Washington, they go and they pluck Keely Ringo or Kendall Milton or whoever it is out there. Brock Bowers. I don't know why I forget to bring him up in that, but because he's probably the best example. But they leave no stone unturned. That's the thing. But yeah, Georgia has dominated Auburn in that case as far as this area goes.
How can Auburn win this game? Don't be so dismissive. Let's figure out how this happens. You've got one of the better head coaches in terms of scheming things up offensively.
Turnovers. You've got to create turnovers if you want to beat Georgia. You want to keep the ball out of their hand, and you're going to have to hit several explosive plays. Go
ahead.
It can't just be one or two explosive plays. Look, Spencer Rattler and South Carolina had a handful of explosive plays. Yeah. I don't know off the top of my head. I'd argue it was more than 10. And
I'd have to go back and look. Because they didn't do a lot in the second half.
That got them 14 points. That got them 14 points, which is not enough to beat Georgia.
I think if you're Hugh Freeze, you want that first drive to be a touchdown. And honestly,
100%.
I don't think that is asking too much when you're at home, when you have, in theory, momentum. But does Auburn have the explosiveness that you really need on offense? If they did, why were they struggling with Cal the way they did?
Look, they struggled to put up 14 on Cal. I know it's on the road. I know it's a different environment that they're not used to.
But it doesn't matter
because it did look like they were going to lose with the Golden Bears. And
yes,
you've got to put up 30 points to beat Georgia. You've got to put up 30 or 40 points to beat Georgia. That's what LSU 2019. That's more than 40 points. Alabama SEC championship
LSU in 19 was 37 points.
It was 37. Okay, it was 37.
37 points. Alabama in Atlanta was 33. Which Atlanta? Alabama for national championship was 26. Alabama in Atlanta in 18 was 35. Alabama in Atlanta in 21 was 42.
41,
41, whatever. Like so over 30, basically, for two of those three.
Yeah.
And then Alabama was 18 in Indianapolis. LSU was 37 in Atlanta. The outliers are a lot of the first-year games. Vanderbilt, 17 wins. Georgia Tech, 28 wins. South Carolina in 19 was 20-17 with a very not great Georgia offense at that moment. Right.
Bizarre day.
The Gators in Jacksonville was 40.
They were in the 30s at least.
It was upper 4. I think it might have been 42 or 5. But you got to score.
You have to score. You got to beat Georgia's defense several times.
It's going to be really hard.
That's a rarity. That's a rarity because all of those that was just a handful of games we mentioned, and that's over the course of a few years. So
it's going to be hard.
That's how rare it is to score that many points in Georgia's defense. That's where it starts for me. You want to beat Georgia, you better put up a lot of points. Because Georgia can put up a lot of points on you too, and they've got a better defense.
They're not as lethal right now on offense, which is totally true. But Georgia.
Yeah.
But the defense has given up, I think, 3 touchdowns in 3 games as of the moment that we're recording this. 3 touchdowns. So in 3 games,
passing, 1 rushing.
In 3 games, they've given up. The first team defense has given up 2 scores. All right. Probably one of those was not an earned touchdown. The 3rd and 16, you get credit for that, but that should have been stopped.
Multiple missed tackles. On the play.
two at a minimum. So, and that counts if you're South Carolina. They don't take the points off the board, but you're not. The challenge against Georgia is you better hit big plays, Ryan, because there's not going to be a lot of teams that can functionally drive the ball down the field on them.
No,
it's hard.
No, yeah, you have to hit explosive plays.
Yeah.
That's a really good point. No one just hands off for 4 yards.
No, dude, that's not going to work.
It's got to be chunk plays. You're going to have to beat them.
A couple of 15.
Look, it's also going to be Georgia making mistakes because you're just not going to cleanly beat Georgia, and they don't make that many mistakes, right?
Well, they did against South Carolina, but Carolina had 11 penalties. Mm-hmm. Carolina had 2 interceptions. South Carolina.
Now, a lot of those were false starts. I don't know how many, but a handful of those. And that's not probably going to happen as much at Auburn when you're at home.
And that's true. But how do you get there? How do you see Auburn winning this game? I mean, I think you're going to have to dominate special teams, which might not be that hard to do necessarily. I think it will be challenging. It might not be that hard to do. And then you've got, you're going to have to maybe score a non-offensive touchdown. That would help. And then use the momentum. But grinding out, they're going to have to grind out a 17-13 win. They're going to have the defense at Auburn's going to have to play really well. We'll see if that happens. I mean, I don't know.
No, and
it's hard to play there.
It is. It is one of the
tougher
environments. Look, it's not like these guys haven't played on the road in the SEC. The only real difference is Carson Beck hasn't started a game on the road in the SEC.
Right.
But he's seen road SEC environments. Now, look, what are the ones that he's played in? For
South
sure,
Carolina.
South Carolina and Vanderbilt. But those are not. It's
Missouri.
South Carolina's crowd was probably gone.
He played at Missouri during COVID. I don't know that necessarily. It's probably about the same as the ending of the Carolina game.
This is a real first kind of deal for him when it comes to that, because all of those were a little bit altered. But Georgia's offense has it. They just need to do it more consistently. They need to finish the drives.
Sure.
They
no
have
penalties.
driven down the field
No
consistently.
penalties in the red zone and all this stuff. Make it easy. Go execute and be done with it.
It feels like they're this close to something, just obliteration.
Let me just say this before we get off on that one, which is this doesn't seem like much, but man, sometimes it really is a real problem. And that's a little bit what I get concerned about is it really this, or is it like we can't get this done? I mean, each of those are a real problem. Thanks for watching. We'll see you on the next video.